Okay, so the idea here is that you have some open ground to cover, there's not anything to scale rush off of, and you don't want to waste any grapples. What is the fastest way to cover that distance? Obviously, just sprinting isn't the way, but maybe there's a certain weapon or soul jade that beats out the rest. That's what I wanted to find out in this video. Specifically, what is the fastest way for me to get from this tree to the end of the free training arena? In the intro, we saw Draconic Might dual halberds getting a 939, so that'll be the number to beat when testing the other weapons. I'll show all my test runs first, and get back to you with some context right after. Time for context, and a couple disclaimers. The main point of this video is basically just to help you decide what to run with when you're out of combat. If you're using a katana, but you have a pair of nunchucks in your inventory, should you swap to them if you have a lot of distance to cover? Likewise, if you're running a pole sword and pick up an Overcomer Soul Jade, is it worth it putting it to use? Answering questions like that is why I wanted to do this. As for the big question of what is the fastest way to cover flat ground, well, that would be dual halberds plus dragon-like might with some attacking in between. If it was the case that you had to cover a much shorter distance and only needed to burn through one stamina bar, or if stamina didn't exist at all, it would be an entirely different story. But for mid to long distances, having a soul jade like this that allows you to regen your stam while maintaining a fast pace is what makes it the fastest in that scenario. You'll notice I didn't test every single way to move in Naraka, and if I left something out, it was probably because it was directly inferior to a version I already showed, and or I deemed it to be visually obvious that it was slower. That does mean it's possible that I left something out that could have made the top 14, but I would be really surprised if there's anything out there that would have been a contender for the top 5. All the tests do need to be taken with a sizable grain of salt, because of course my mechanics are not perfect, and if I were to repeat the testing, there's a good chance that the rankings would end up slightly different. I actually don't see a big issue with this though, because if two methods are so close to one another that the tiniest variability could make the difference, it probably doesn't matter which one you're using anyways. So honestly, a notable conclusion from this testing is that most of the time, you don't really need to be that concerned about which one of these you're using. Obviously, if you're running all the way across Holoroth, these differences would be pretty exaggerated and therefore more important. In my opinion, you don't really need to worry about it unless, let's say, you're using something that's 5 or so ranks below something else that you have in your inventory, or you just have an absurdly long distance to go. I also want to make extra clear that if you are running away from someone, speed is not all that matters, and will often take the back seat compared to grapple stagger immunity. For example, while this staff technique might not be the fastest, it is extremely useful when on the run from a player. That's just about it for now though. I can only hope all this information was helpful for you. Don't forget to ask any questions in the comments, and I'll see you next time.